Some people say your life can fall apart in an instant, but I never believed it until that morning in the delivery room. One moment, I thought I was about to become a father. The next, I realized I'd been living in a carefully built lie. My name is Alex Jackson, 35 years old, and these days I spend my mornings alone in a quiet apartment, reviewing contracts instead of dreams. The life I had with my wife Sylvia exists now only in memories, and in a stack of papers that nearly became my undoing. That stack arrived in a clean white hospital folder, edges perfectly aligned, right after the truth walked into the world crying. Sylvia's voice was soft when she handed me the pen, but her eyes were already distant. The form inside, the acknowledgement of paternity, might as well have been a death sentence written in legal ink. Leo, my oldest friend, used to joke that I could always see through the noise, that I was built for clarity when chaos struck. He was right. In that sterile room, with the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air, I saw everything for what it was. Stripped of love, stripped of excuses. The deception hadn't been emotional, it was planned. The receipts, the hotel records, the text messages I would later find, all of it painted the same cold picture. But in that moment, I didn't rage. I didn't shout. I just stood there, fingers tracing the folder's edge, knowing that justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it signed nothing. Still, to understand why I made that choice, you have to go back to where the ruin began. The delivery room buzzed with a rhythm only hospitals know, machines humming, nurses moving in well-rehearsed choreography. I stood at Sylvia's side, hand wrapped around hers, trying to match her breath. "You're doing great, Mrs. Jackson," one of the nurses encouraged, voice bright and practiced. "Almost there." Her grip on me tightened, knuckles pale with effort. For a flicker of a second, I saw our wedding day again. The ivory lace, the vows about forever. And then the image broke as the doctor said, "One more big push." A sharp cry filled the room, cutting through every sound. Sylvia fell back on the pillow, exhausted and shining with sweat. The nurses moved quickly, washing, wrapping, weighing, everything neat, routine, clinical. Then came the words that should have made me the happiest man alive. "Congratulations," a nurse said gently, handing over the swaddled baby. "It's a beautiful baby girl." But the moment I looked down, time stretched and froze. The bright hospital lights made every detail impossible to ignore. My mind tried to deny what my eyes already knew. But truth doesn't ask permission to exist. Sylvia and I are both white. The child in my arms was not. A nurse approached with calm efficiency, holding out the same white folder that would soon haunt me. "Mr. Jackson, while we get everything finalized, we'll need your signature on the acknowledgement of paternity form." Sylvia's fingers found my wrist, pressing tight, desperate. "Alex," she whispered, her voice sharp with urgency. "Just sign it quietly, please." The pen hovered in my hand. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Every instinct screamed to stop, to think. Years of managing crises in boardrooms had taught me one thing. When things fall apart, you don't panic. You analyze. This was just another crisis, except this one was wearing my wife's face. The nurse prompted again, a note of confusion in her tone. "Mr. Jackson?" I looked from the form to the bassinet, then to Sylvia. Her expression had changed. Not fear, not guilt, but something colder, calculated. The warm smile that had carried us through 9 months of anticipation was gone. In its place stood someone I didn't know. "I'll need to review the paperwork first," I said finally, the words heavy and deliberate. They sounded calm, but inside I felt my world narrowing. The nurse frowned slightly, unsure. Sylvia's nails dug into my wrist, but I gently pulled free. The folder remained open, unsigned, a small act of rebellion that drew a line between truth and betrayal. "Alex," Sylvia hissed, half plea, half threat. "Don't make this difficult." I stayed silent, staring at the truth lying in that bassinet. No argument, no excuse could erase what I'd seen. I turned and walked out into the hallway, where the smell of floor polish and fresh paint filled the air, bright and cold. Sylvia followed, her hospital gown swaying, her tone shifting into the smooth persuasion I'd fallen for years ago. "You're overreacting," she said softly. "Genetics skip around. My grandmother's sister had darker skin. It's just a throwback." Her words were too quick, too ready. They didn't stumble. They were practiced. I saw through them the way a child sees through a magician's trick once he's old enough to understand misdirection. That was the moment I realized this wasn't confusion. It was strategy. "I'm not signing anything without a DNA test," I said evenly. My voice was steady, but inside something hollowed out. A nurse passing by glanced at us and kept walking, pretending not to hear. "You're making a scene," Sylvia hissed, eyes flicking toward the staff. "Why are you doing this to us?" After everything? To me, I said quietly. This isn't about scenes, Sylvia. It's about facts. And the fact is, I'm not signing anything until the truth is proven. Her face trembled into a practiced expression of hurt, the kind she used when she wanted to win an argument by pity. But beneath it I caught a flash, a flicker of anger she couldn't hide fast enough. "How can you be so cold?" she whispered. "I just gave birth to our daughter and you're treating me like someone who needs to explain something," I finished for her. The hospital PA system crackled overhead. "Mr. Jackson to registration. Please, Mr. Jackson to registration." Sylvia latched onto it like a lifeline. "See, they're waiting for you," she urged. "Just go sign the paperwork and we'll talk later. You're embarrassing us both." I took a long breath, the kind that marks the moment before everything changes. The fluorescent lights hummed above, sharp and unkind, casting long shadows across the white floor. For a moment, I saw her as she once was, the woman I loved, laughing on our first date. But that person was gone. "No," I said simply. "I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever. Not without a test." "Alex," she started, but I cut her off. "I'm not making a scene," I said, voice low, steady, final. "I'm making a choice." Then I turned away from her, from the lie, from the trap waiting behind that white folder. My shoes echoed down the hall as I walked, toward the parking garage, each step a quiet rebellion, against the life that could have been built on someone else's truth. The registration desk could keep calling. Some papers were better left unsigned. Behind me, Sylvia's voice rose with an edge of panic. "Where are you going? You can't just walk away from this." But I could, and I was. Truth might arrive in unexpected packages, but once you see it, you can't go back to comfortable lies. Not if you want to keep looking yourself in the mirror. The parking garage's concrete walls amplified every sound. My footsteps, my breathing, the click of my phone as I pulled up Leo's number. I'd known him since college through good times and bad. This definitely qualified as bad. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey man, what's up, Leo?" My voice came out steadier than I expected, though my free hand had clenched into a fist. "I need a lawyer. A good one. Right now." There was a brief pause. "You're at the hospital, right?" Sylvia had the baby. "Yeah." I leaned against a concrete pillar, its coolness seeping through my shirt. "The baby isn't mine, Leo. Not even close to possible." "Jesus Christ." He exhaled sharply. "You sure? Unless I missed some major genetics lessons. White couples don't have babies that clearly aren't white." The words tasted bitter. She wanted me to sign the birth certificate anyway. Tried feeding me some story about her grandmother's sister. Remember those late-night study sessions in college when Leo would cut through complex problems with simple logic? His voice had that same clarity now. "Don't sign anything. Not a damn thing. Look, I know a guy, Miles Hart, family law attorney, best in the business. Let me conference him in." 3 quick beeps later, a new voice joined us. Crisp, professional, authoritative. Miles Hart speaking. I laid out the situation in clean, efficient sentences, like reporting a project failure to upper management. My voice only wavered once, describing Sylvia's practiced explanation. "Listen carefully," Miles said when I finished. "The hospital will push for that signature. It's procedure. But once you sign, you're legally accepting paternity. Some states give you limited time to challenge it. Others make it nearly impossible. We need to act fast." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I absorbed this. "What's my first move?" "Submit a written request for paternity testing immediately. I'll email you the exact wording. Make 2 copies, one for the hospital administration, one for your records. Document everything and absolutely do not sign anything else." I could hear him typing. Time is critical here. Without quick action, you could be presumed the legal father regardless of biology. That means child support, shared custody. The works. "I understand." The words came outclipped, controlled. Inside, fury simmered at how close I'd come to walking into this trap. Leo spoke up. "I can meet you at your place later if you need backup." "Thanks." The support in his voice helped steady me. "I'll let you know." Miles's email arrived as we wrapped up. I found the hospital's administrative office and submitted the test request, watching the clerk date stamp both copies. The original disappeared into their system. The copy went into my pocket like armor. Driving home, I gripped the steering wheel hard enough to whiten my knuckles. The late afternoon sun slanted through my windshield, warm and golden. The same sun that had shone on our wedding day. 5 years of memories shifted under this new light, their edges suddenly sharp with doubt. Traffic flowed around me. Normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was living in a moment that would divide my life into before and after. My headlights clicked on automatically as dusk gathered, cutting through the growing darkness ahead. The kitchen table had been our gathering spot for 5 years of shared meals and easy conversation. Now it held bank statements, medical records, and the DNA's request. Exhibits in the collapse of trust. Outside, crickets chirped in the gathering dusk. A peaceful sound that felt jarringly out of place. I'd positioned my phone carefully, voice recorder running. Some might call it paranoid. I called it prudent. Sylvia sat across from me, her makeup perfect despite the hospital stay, not a hair out of place. That's what hit me hardest. How composed she looked. Like this was just another discussion about utility bills or weekend plans. "We need to talk about what happened yesterday," I said, keeping my voice steady. The same tone I'd use in a difficult project meeting. "I have questions that need answers." She folded her hands on the table. "I already explained about genetics. Stop." I laid out the test request copy. "I'm not here to debate biology. I've requested a DNA test. What concerns me is why you tried to make me sign that form without telling me the truth." "The truth?" Her eyes widened with practiced innocence. "You're making assumptions." "No assumptions. Facts. I tapped the bank statements. Regular Uber rides to the Westbrook Hotel during my business trips. ATM withdrawals that match the timing. Phone records showing calls I never knew about." Her expression shifted, the mask slipping for just a moment before recovering. "You're going through my private things now. That's controlling. That's self-protection." I cut in and necessary given what I found. The tears started then, right on cue. "How could you do this to us? To me and this innocent baby? Everyone will think you're horrible abandoning your family." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said. "I'm refusing to be trapped in Ailey." She stood up, chair scraping against tile. "You're being cruel, heartless after everything we've built." "Everything we've built?" A sharp laugh escaped me. "You mean everything you've destroyed? Through choices you made deliberately." "I'll tell everyone what you're doing," she hissed, tears vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. "Your family, our friends, your work, they'll all know what kind of man walks out on his newborn. They'll know exactly what kind of man refuses to sign a false paternity claim. I kept my seat, kept my voice level, and they'll know exactly what kind of woman tries to trap him with one." Her hand slammed the table. "You bastard! You think you're so righteous?" "I think I'm being rational," I said, "which is why I'm recording this conversation." That stopped her cold. She stared at my phone, visible now between the papers. "You can't one-party consent state," I said. "I can and I did. Every threat, every contradiction, every admission through denial, it's all preserved." Silence fell between us, heavy and final. She sank back into her chair, glaring across the scattered papers with naked hatred. I'd seen Sylvia wear many expressions over our years together. Joy, sadness, love, anger, but never this toxic mix of thwarted manipulation and exposed desperation. I gathered the documents methodically, tucking them into their folder. My hands didn't shake at all. Sometimes strength comes not from what you say, but from what you refuse to accept. "We're done here," I said, standing. "My lawyer will be in touch." The morning after our kitchen confrontation, I met Miles Hart in his downtown office. The space smelled of leather and coffee with diplomas and family photos, creating an intentionally reassuring atmosphere. I'd barely slept, but the sharp edge of exhaustion kept my mind focused. "Time isn't our friend here," Miles said, spreading documents across his desk. "The hospital will process that birth certificate soon. Without quick action, you could be legally presumed the father, regardless of biology." My stomach tightened. "How long do we have?" 30 days. He tapped his pen against the calendar. "That's our window to file for paternity adjudication and get a financial freeze in place. After that, presumption of paternity becomes much harder to challenge." I remembered the taste of hospital coffee, bitter and burning from just yesterday. Had it only been yesterday? "What do you need from me?" "Everything." Miles pulled out a checklist. Bank statements, credit card records, text messages, emails, anything that documents the timeline. "We're filing today, but we need to build our case fast." I nodded, already mentally cataloging. "I've started recording our conversations." "Good. Keep doing that. Document every interaction, every threat, every attempt at manipulation." He leaned forward. "And Alex, protect yourself financially right now." The next few hours became a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I opened new accounts at a different bank, changed passwords, documented joint assets. Each action felt like dismantling our life together piece by piece. But every discovery reinforced the necessity. When I checked our shared cell phone account, I found calls to an unfamiliar number spanning months, always during my business trips. The pattern was so clear now. How had I missed it? "Remember the way she used to text me good morning every day when we were dating?" The memory hit unexpectedly, making my hands pause over the keyboard. Those messages had made Mesmal once. Now they felt like early rehearsals for a long performance. Back home, Sylvia had cleared out of the house temporarily. Staying with her sister, she'd texted. Her absence felt both relief and accusation. The house echoed with emptiness as I organized papers into folders, building the case that would protect my future. The 30-day countdown loomed over everything. I marked the deadline on my calendar with red ink, the circle around the date like a target or a noose. Each morning I crossed off another day, watching our window narrow. Sylvia's messages swung between extremes. First silence, then we can work this out. Later, you're making a huge mistake. Finally, you'll regret this. I saved them all, watching the progression from manipulation to threat with a detached sort of fascination. Miles called mid-afternoon. Filings are in. The judge will review our motion for the financial freeze tomorrow, and the paternity challenge also filed. But Alex, his voice turned grave. These 30 days, they're going to feel like 30 years. Are you ready for that? I looked at the calendar again, at that red circle marking both deadline and deliverance. Days to prevent a lifetime of lies. 30 days to protect everything I'd built. Days to ensure truth prevailed over convenience. I'm ready, I said. Whatever it takes. That night, sleep refused to come. The house felt wrong. Too quiet, too empty, like a stage after the actors leave. Around midnight, I gave up trying and headed to my home office to review more documents. The blue glow of my laptop cast shadows across stacks of financial records and legal forms. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. Something about this whole situation felt too coordinated, too planned. I reached for Sylvia's tablet, still plugged in beside her usual spot on the couch. She'd always used it for everything. Social media, photos, messaging. The passcode hadn't changed. She probably thought I'd never look. The home screen showed her standard array of apps. Nothing suspicious. Remember how she used to share her passwords freely, calling it a sign of trust? Back then, I'd thought it sweet. Now that memory tasted like copper in my mouth. My finger hovered over the file manager. This felt invasive even now. But Miles's words echoed. Document everything. I tapped the icon. Most folders were exactly what you'd expect. Recipes, work documents, photos sorted by date. But there, tucked between Pinterest ideas and recipes, sat a folder labeled Plan B. My chest tightened. The timestamp showed it was created 6 months ago. Inside, I found screenshots of text conversations with someone named Jared. Hundreds of them carefully organized by date. My hands started shaking as I opened the first file. He's leaving for Chicago next week, Sylvia had written. Hotels booked. Jared's response. Perfect timing. I miss you. I scrolled through more screenshots. Uber receipts to a hotel across town. Always during my business trips. Location pins exchanged. Planning sessions. The messages grew more explicit about their intentions. What if he notices at the hospital? Jared had asked. He won't question it, Sylvia replied. He trusts me completely. We just need him to sign first. Then what? Then we argue for support later. His name on the certificate is all we need. My stomach lurched. I'd been right in the delivery room. This wasn't confusion or genetics or any of her excuses. This was calculated. Every smile, every reassurance, every squeeze of my hand while asking me to sign. All part of a manufactured performance. The final screenshot, dated just before the birth, knocked the air from my lungs. Jared. What if he refuses? Sylvia, he'll sign at the hospital. He always does the right thing. They'd counted on my integrity. Planned to use it against me. The irony made my teeth ache. I sat there in the dark, tablet glowing, pulse pounding in my ears. The house felt colder somehow. Or maybe that was just the chill of realizing how completely I'd been cast in their production. The reliable husband, the guaranteed signature, the willing mark. You know that moment when scattered puzzle pieces suddenly form a clear picture? When all the small inconsistencies snap into focus. My hands were trembling, but my mind felt razor sharp. I started taking screenshots, sending them to my email, documenting everything. Not just for the legal case now, but because some part of me needed proof that this was real, that I hadn't imagined the depth of this betrayal. 3 days before our court date, I met Miles at his office. The morning sun caught the brass nameplate on his door, momentarily blinding me. Fitting somehow. Everything felt too bright, too sharp lately. Inside, he transformed the conference room into a war room. 3 black binders dominated the polished table, each labeled with precise tabs. The Plan B screenshots formed the centerpiece of our case, backed by bank statements, DNA test requests, and hospital records. We've got it organized chronologically, Miles said, tapping the first binder. Their messages, your business trip dates, the hotel receipts, it all lines up. His confidence steadied me. The judge needs to see the premeditation. I remembered weekend mornings years ago, Sylvia and I planning our future over coffee. Speaking of trust and forever. Now here I sat documenting its demolition in triple-copied detail. What about her latest texts? I asked, pulling out my phone. The screen showed a fresh barrage from this morning. You're destroying everything we built. Think about what people will say. How can you do this to your family? Miles scanned them, jaw tightening. More manipulation. Add them to the record. They show her pattern. Notice she never actually denies anything. He was right. Every message attacked me, but none addressed the truth. Leo stopped by during lunch carrying takeout and that steady presence I'd come to rely on. You look like hell, he said, dropping into a chair. Thanks for the update. Hey, just keeping it real. He pushed a container toward me. When's the last time you actually ate? I couldn't remember. Food had become mechanical, like sleep, something to maintain basic function. Leo watched me pick at the pasta, his usual humor replaced with concern. Listen, he said. Tomorrow's going to be rough, but you've got this. The evidence is solid. Just stay calm and let it speak for itself. That evening, I spread everything across my kitchen table, running through each point. The familiar space felt foreign now. Every surface held memories I couldn't trust. Remember how she used to leave little notes by the coffee maker? Sweet nothings that were apparently just nothing. My phone buzzed again. Sylvia, please don't do this. We can work it out. I set the phone face down without responding. Her words had lost their power, replaced by the hard evidence in front of me. In the bathroom mirror that night, I practiced my statements. The man staring back looked older, harder around the eyes, but steady, principled. I stand by my decision to request DNA testing. I have documentation of premeditated deception. I will not accept legal responsibility through fraud. Simple declarations, true ones. My voice grew firmer with each repetition. The courthouse waited in my mind. Those heavy doors, the echoing halls, the weight of judgment. Tomorrow would write the ending to this chapter of my life. I straightened my shoulders, met my reflections, gaze. The bitter taste of betrayal still lingered, but something else had grown stronger. Certainty. Let her bring her tears and accusations. I had the truth printed in black and white, dated and documented. Miles's words from our first meeting echoed. The law doesn't care about emotions. It cares about evidence. The courtroom's oak panels absorbed every whisper as we filed in. Miles sat to my right, his presence as solid as a wall. Leo had insisted on taking the morning off work to sit behind us. I could feel his supportive energy at my back. Judge Ria's entrance commanded instant silence. Her dark robes whispered against the bench as she settled in, scanning our assembled group with practiced eyes. I'd seen that same assessment in my project management meetings, the look of someone mapping out complications before they arose. Present your evidence, counselor, she directed Miles. He stood smooth and practiced. Your Honor, we begin with the DNA exclusion report, conclusively eliminating my client as the biological father. The lab results passed to the clerk, their sterile medical language, somehow both clinical and devastating. I watched Sylvia from the corner of my eye. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded, projecting wounded dignity. The facade cracked only when Miles mentioned the DNA test. Her fingers tightened until the knuckles went white. Additionally, Miles continued, we have evidence of premeditation. He presented the Plan B folder contents now preserved in meticulous chronological order. Text messages between Mrs. Jackson and her paramour discussing their strategy to secure my client's signature on the birth certificate before revealing the truth. The hotel receipts followed each one a knife twist. Dates matching my business trips, locations corresponding to their meetups. Their digital footprints painted a map of calculated betrayal. Sylvia's attorney attempted intervention. Your Honor, my client was confused, emotional. Judge Rivera's hand rose, silencing him. Mrs. Jackson, her tone could have chilled steam. These messages are quite explicit about your intentions. Would you care to explain this one? She read from the transcript. He'll sign at the hospital, then we're set. The performance began right on cue. Sylvia's eyes welled up, her voice trembling. I was scared. I just wanted to commit paternity fraud. Judge Rivera's interruption cracked like a whip. This court does not look kindly on attempts to manipulate legal proceedings through deception. I remembered Sylvia's whispered plea in the delivery room. Please, let's just handle paperwork. The same tone she'd used when asking me to pick up her favorite ice cream. Like fraud was just another errand. Based on the DNA exclusion and clear evidence of attempted paternity fraud, Judge Rivera declared, this court rules as follows. Mr. Jackson is not the legal father. The temporary freeze on joint accounts will become permanent pending divorce proceedings. Mr. Jackson's name shall not appear on any birth records. The gavel struck. The sound rang through my bones like a bell-tolling truth. Sylvia's carefully constructed trap had sprung empty. The weight of pretense of maintaining calm through betrayal began sliding from my shoulders. I felt lighter, hollowed out but clean, like a wound finally drained of poison. Miles gathered our documents while Leo squeezed my shoulder. Through the subsiding adrenaline, I heard Judge Rivera's final words. This court stands adjourned. The gavel fell one last time. It sounded like a door slamming shut on deception, sealing truth on the right side of justice. 2 weeks after the court hearing, I stood in the backyard of my new rental house, measuring distances between trees. The real estate agent had called it cozy, which was code for small, but the yard made up for it. Open and sunny with good soil. Perfect for new beginnings. The garden center staff had helped me pick out a red maple sapling. These grow straight and strong, the older gentleman had said, if you give them the right start. I'd nodded, understanding more than he knew. Leo pulled up in his truck, carrying over the post-hole digger I'd borrowed. Need a hand? He sat down a coffee carrier with 2 cups. The familiar scent triggered a flash of memory. Weekend mornings at my old place. Paper spread across the kitchen table, planning projects that would never happen now. Thanks. I took a sip, letting the warmth settle. The soil's good here. Tested it yesterday. He watched me mark the spot. You're handling this better than most would. I drove the digger into the earth, creating space for new roots. The child was innocent, I said, working the handles. Still is, but her choices weren't, and now she's living with them, not me. The hole took shape deep enough to support growth. I remembered Judge Rivera's words, how they'd carved a clean line between past and future. The court order protected my finances. My name stayed off the birth certificate, and my conscience remained clear. 2 victories, 1 legal, 1 personal. Miles called yesterday, I told Leo, loosening the sapling's root ball. Said Sylvia is trying to get Jared to step up. Apparently he's not interested in fatherhood either. Karma's got a mean backhand, Leo observed. Not karma, consequences. I positioned the maple, checking it was straight. She mapped out that trap like one of my project schedules, even had contingencies. I paused, hands deep in fresh soil. But she didn't plan for someone choosing truth over convenience. The earth felt cool and real between my fingers as I packed it around the roots. Behind me, the house sat quiet. No echoes of manipulation, no shadows of betrayal, just clean rooms waiting for new memories. Leo helped me secure the support stakes. You going to be okay out there by yourself? I already am. I stepped back, studying the sapling's upright form. For the first time in months, I can breathe without feeling weight on my chest. The morning sun caught the maple leaves, still tender with youth, but already reaching skyward. I thought about growth, how it requires both disturbance and stability, breaking ground to build strength. You know what I learned from all this? I brushed soil from my hands, facing my friend. Truth hurts briefly. Lies cost years. Leo nodded, understanding in his eyes. We stood there, watching the sapling sway slightly in the breeze, its roots already claiming new ground, just as I was. The pain hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into something useful, like compost feeding future growth. I picked up the empty coffee cups, ready to head inside. The maple would need regular watering, careful attention, and time to establish itself. Just like healing, just like starting over. But that's what truth gives you. Not an easy path, but a clear one. And clear paths, I'd learned, lead to solid ground.